Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to empower you, whether you're a classroom teacher, a school administrator, a bus driver, or a school nurse, to confidently handle sensitive student information every single day. Look, we all know schools are incredibly busy, chaotic places, but getting a clear, rock-solid understanding of how to properly protect the data of the students we serve, that is absolutely critical for all employees. Our core focus right now is to make sure you walk away totally understanding the ins and outs of FERPA and HIPAA. Here is our survival guide roadmap. First, we'll look at IEPs, 504s, and protected info. Second, unpacking FERPA and student privacy. Third, understanding HIPAA in our schools. And finally, putting it to the test with real-world privacy scenarios. Let's jump right in.
Section 1, IEPs, 504s, and protected information. First things first, we really have to acknowledge the heavy weight of the data you're handling on a daily basis.
The stakes here are incredibly tangible. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher sitting at a desk or a bus driver navigating morning traffic on a special education route, you are holding highly protected information. It's not just a stack of paperwork, it's a student's private life. Treating that information with the absolute highest level of respect is job number one. Because if we open up those IEPs or 504 plans, you're looking at some seriously sensitive details. We're talking medical data, specific daily communication goals, deeply personal behavior logs, and an aide's direct notes on how a student is acting. This information is a vital tool for that student's educational success, for sure, but it must remain strictly confidential. It is definitely not water cooler conversation material. Moving on to Section 2, unpacking FERPA and student privacy. So what exactly governs all this data? Let's decode the massive federal framework we call FERPA. The really crucial point here is that the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, gives parents and eligible students over 18 some very specific rights. It allows them to inspect, review, request amendments to, and essentially control who gets to see their personally identifiable information. And because your school receives funds from the U.S. Department of Education, you are legally bound by this privacy shield. Now, it helps to understand the strict contrast between heavily protected educational records and what we call directory information exceptions. On one hand, things like grades, K-12 health files, discipline files, and student emails, those are locked down tight. But on the other hand, you have directory information. This is stuff like a student's name, grade level, photos, or sports participation. Generally, that kind of stuff can be shared, like in a yearbook or a sports program, unless a parent specifically opts out. So, what exactly makes up personally identifiable information, or PII? Well, simply put, it's anything that can trace back to a specific student. It ranges from the totally obvious, like a social security number or a student ID, all the way to their family members' names, their home address, or even their mother's maiden name. Bottom line, if it can uniquely pinpoint a kid in your care, it has to be locked down securely. No exceptions. Actually, scratch that. There is one critical caveat to these rules. FERPA privacy protocols absolutely can be bypassed during real active emergencies. If there's a natural disaster, a terrorist attack, a campus shooting, or an epidemic outbreak, safety comes first. But listen closely to this part. These exceptions do not apply during your routine emergency preparation drills. During a drill, standard privacy protocols are still 100% in effect. Okay, Section 3, understanding HIPAA in our schools. Let's switch gears a bit and see how health privacy specifically builds into our school environment. While FERPA handles educational records, HIPAA steps in as the national standard specifically designed to lock down protected health information, or PHI. It's super easy to get these two confused in a school setting, but just remember, HIPAA is all about protecting healthcare data across the country, making sure sensitive medical information doesn't fall into the wrong hands. As a school employee, you really just need to know that HIPAA operates on 3 essential gears. First up, the privacy rule, which dictates who can actually access the health info. Second, the security rule, mandating all the technical safeguards to keep that electronic data safe from hackers. And third, the breach notification rule. This legally requires that if health data does leak, the individuals whose data was compromised must be notified. Things can get a little tricky right at the intersection of FERPA and HIPAA, especially for our school medical staff. Take licensed practical nurses, for example. They have to navigate completely different rules depending on whose file they're holding. If they're handling a student's health record, they're generally operating under FERPA because K-12 student health records are actually considered educational records. But if they're holding an employee's health record, HIPAA regulations take the wheel. It's a vital distinction to make. Section 4, Real-World Privacy Scenarios. All right, it's time to put on your detective hats. Let's see how well you understand this by applying these federal rules to some real-world situations you might literally face tomorrow morning. Let's investigate Tanya's dilemma. Imagine Tanya's school requires all students to wear an ID badge with their name and photo for security purposes. The school has designated names and photos as directory information, but Tanya's parents legally exercise their right to opt out of those disclosures. So what happens? Does she still have to wear her ID badge? This puts school administrator Mr. Jones in a really tough spot. He has to balance the parents' FERPA opt-out rights against the school's fundamental safety requirements for identifying who is on campus. Well, under FERPA guidance, an opt-out of directory information doesn't necessarily prevent a school from requiring a student to wear a student ID badge. Ultimately, basic safety and identification protocols within the school building usually take precedence. Next up, let's look at Liam's medical situation. Liam isn't feeling well and heads to the clinic. A bit later, a totally well-meaning teacher asks the school nurse if Liam has a condition that will keep him out of class for multiple days, just so she can plan her lessons. Is Nurse Ginny legally allowed to pull from Liam's health records to answer her? Nurse Ginny has to remember our earlier intersection rule. Those K-12 health records are strictly classified as protected educational records under FERPA. That means she absolutely cannot freely share his specific medical details or diagnoses with the teacher, even if it's just for classroom planning. She can confirm he's absent or going home sick, sure, but the actual medical information in his file is protected. It requires parental consent to be disclosed. As you head back to your classrooms, your school buses, your front offices, and your clinics, I want to leave you with one final vital thought to guide your daily actions. Are you guarding these records, these IEPs, 504 plans, and health files, with the exact same vigilance and fierce care that you demand for your own family's privacy? Remember, keeping student data safe isn't just about avoiding some federal penalty. It's about honoring the deep trust placed in us by our communities. So how will you protect that trust today?